Mistress pushes pregnant wife down the stairs. Billionaire husband ignores her miscarriage. Under the shimmering glow of a priceless chandelier, a hush fell over the grand foyer of the Blackwood mansion. A lavish party was underway, yet an undercurrent of tension pulsed beneath the champagne fizz and polite laughter. At the top of the sweeping staircase, Serena Blackwood, 8 months pregnant, stood precariously. In a heartbeat, everything changed. Her scream tore through the silence, followed by a sickening thud. The lively chatter below ceased as every gaze snapped upward, too late to save her. In that dreadful moment, a tragic betrayal came to light, one so cruel it would unravel secrets far too big for one family to contain. Ethan Blackwood was one of New York City's wealthiest philanthropists, a billionaire known for his generous donations to hospitals, schools, and various charitable organizations. From the outside, the Blackwood name was associated with shining galas, red carpet events, and primetime interviews on renowned networks. High society tabloids lavished praise upon Ethan's ability to grow the family fortune by investing wisely in tech startups and real estate developments. Everyone who knew him at least superficially believed Ethan was a man who not only had impeccable taste, but also a heart for giving back. Serena Blackwood, his wife, was the epitome of grace and poise. Raised in London before settling in Manhattan, she had an elegant, refined accent that turned heads whenever she spoke. She was a lover of fine arts, often hosting charity auctions at the Metropolitan Museum of Art, bringing in millions of dollars in donations for her favorite causes. People whispered that Serena was too soft-hearted, that she lacked the steely resolve needed to thrive in cutthroat social circles. However, her kind spirit was precisely what endeared her to so many. When Ethan and Serena were first engaged, magazines were quick to call it the wedding of the century. Gossip columns devoured every detail of their courtship. The lavish proposal under a full moon on Ethan's private yacht, the sparkling diamond ring rumored to have cost close to $2 million, and the star-studded engagement party held at the Plaza Hotel. Their union seemed to be a fairy tale, a flawless match of affluence and refinement. But behind all the glitter lay cracks that weren't immediately visible. Certain insiders whispered that Serena was too trusting of Ethan's business associates. Others said that Ethan's business acumen had started to overshadow his devotion to his marriage. There were rumors of late-night meetings with questionable partners and hushed conversations about expansions into territories riddled with corruption. Serena brushed these whispers aside. She believed her husband's unstoppable ambition was simply the hallmark of a successful magnate after all. With great power comes great risk. And so life proceeded, with both living in a gilded bubble of wealth, ignoring the faint signs of trouble like a small tear in a masterpiece painting. It wasn't until Serena became pregnant that the distance between them started to become glaringly obvious. The pregnancy, initially a joyous announcement, marked the moment Serena began to see subtle shifts in Ethan's behavior. He was often away on business trips or locked away in his study for hours, emerging only for a hasty meal before retiring to bed. He showered her with lavish gifts, designer maternity clothes, extravagant baby furniture, even a golden crib studded with emeralds from a boutique in Paris. Yet the simplest gift of genuine presence was missing. He never accompanied her to doctor's appointments. He didn't sit with her to look at the ultrasound photos in awe. These emotional gaps spoke volumes, but Serena, ever optimistic, told herself that as soon as Ethan was done with his latest wave of business deals, he would refocus on his growing family. The truth was far uglier. Ethan's obsessions had shifted, but not simply toward new business ventures. Unknown to Serena, another woman had captured his attention. Her name was Vanessa Montclair, a striking socialite and aspiring actress making small waves in the independent film circuit. She wasn't just a fling, she craved the status and the wealth that came with being on Ethan's arm, and she was ready to do whatever it took to claim her spot in his life. While Serena spent her days planning for the baby, Vanessa spent hers strategizing a coup. With every passing week, she pulled Ethan a little further under her spell. But none of this was spelled out in neon letters. It all unfolded in quiet text messages, whispered phone calls, and seemingly innocent business dinners that stretched late into the night. Serena noticed the lipstick stains on Ethan's collars once or twice, the suspicious scent of perfume that definitely wasn't hers. She also caught sight of odd charges on their joint credit card statements. Expensive dinners in places she had never been invited to, jewelry store purchases that never seemed to manifest as gifts for her. She rationalized them away. Perhaps Ethan was buying a gift for his mother, or maybe for some vital business associate's wife. Little did she know, these were cracks in her perfect world, cracks that would soon become wide, gaping fissures impossible to ignore. In the swirl of black tie events and philanthropic luncheons, a storm was brewing, and it was about to unleash its fury upon the Blackwood household in the most dramatic way imaginable. Serena's days became lonelier as Ethan's absences grew more frequent. Everyone in Serena's social circle loved to gush about how radiant she looked with her pregnancy glow, but beneath her gracious smiles, she battled waves of uncertainty. At night, she would lie awake, hand resting protectively over her growing belly, while Ethan's side of the bed remained cold until well past midnight. Those stolen moments when she heard him creeping in, the faint squeak of the bedroom door, were never followed by a conversation. He would slip into bed with hardly a word. One afternoon, after returning from a fundraiser at the Waldorf Astoria, Serena noticed a name scribbled on a notepad in Ethan's study: Vanessa Montclair, 7 p.m. Boulud. Something about it made her heart seize. For years, she had grown used to seeing random names and times jotted down for business dinners, but her instincts told her that this name was different. She recalled hearing a whisper about some gorgeous redhead in Ethan's orbit. She had dismissed the rumor at the time. Now, goosebumps prickled across her skin as she stared at the name. Summoning courage she didn't know she possessed, Serena decided to confront Ethan. She walked into the plush lounge where he was sipping a nightcap, his necktie loosened after a long day. "Ethan, I need to talk to you," she said, her voice trembling slightly. He looked up from his glass, arching an eyebrow. "Yes, my dear." His tone was warm yet guarded, a polished front that he reserved for crucial business meetings and tricky interrogations. "Who is Vanessa Montclair?" Serena tried to keep her voice steady, but she could feel it quiver against her will. Ethan took a deliberate sip of his whiskey. "Just someone I'm negotiating a deal with," he replied, eyes averted. "You know I have to network with a lot of different investors and creative minds." She wanted to believe him. Desperate to keep her pregnancy stress-free, she let the subject drop. But something about his tone was off, too smooth, too practiced. She felt a chill in the air, as though the ghosts of future heartache were already dancing around them. The following morning, an unexpected visitor arrived at the Blackwood estate. It was Teresa Thompson, an old friend of Serena's from her London days. Teresa had come to check on Serena upon hearing rumors in certain circles that not everything was rosy in the Blackwood marriage. Over tea, Teresa gently probed, "Serena, darling, you look tired. Is everything all right? You should be glowing with joy, but I sense worry in your eyes." Serena tried to deflect. I'm fine, just busy with baby preparations. She forced a smile. There's so much going on, hospital tours, pediatrician research, nursery planning. Ethan's also extremely busy. He's about to close a major deal. Teresa's expression softened with empathy. You don't have to say anything. I know how these high-profile marriages can be. Just remember, you're not alone. If you need me, I'm here. Before leaving, Teresa grabbed Serena's hand. Don't let yourself be overshadowed by his empire, she whispered. In wealth, secrets grow bigger. With that cryptic warning, Teresa bid her friend farewell, leaving Serena with a tangle of thoughts she couldn't unravel. Over the next few weeks, Serena tried to refocus on nurturing the life inside her. She decorated the nursery in soft neutrals, hired a top interior designer from Paris to create a fairy tale ambience. She enrolled in a prenatal yoga class at an exclusive studio on the Upper East Side. Life moved forward in measured steps, but deep in her heart she felt that something was amiss. Ethan continued to come and go at odd hours. The name Vanessa Montclair appeared more frequently on his lips. He claimed she was involved in philanthropic ventures connected to the film industry, insisting their closeness was purely professional. Yet, Serena couldn't ignore the unease that shadowed every mention of Vanessa, as though she were some elusive figure stepping between them whenever they tried to connect, even physically in the same room. At a gala for Street, Jude's Children's Research Hospital, Serena spotted Vanessa for the first time across the ballroom. She was stunning tall, with fiery red hair that framed a flawless complexion and eyes that sparkled with mischievous ambition. She glided through the crowd with an air of unshakable confidence, accepting compliments as though they were her birthright. For reasons Serena couldn't fully articulate, she felt a primal sense of dread. The mild cramp in her belly was a warning sign she couldn't disregard. Vanessa eventually made her way toward them, greeting Ethan with a kiss on the cheek that lingered a second too long. "Serena," Vanessa said with a smile that didn't touch her eyes. "I've heard so much about you. Congratulations on the baby." Her gaze traveled to Serena's belly, lips curling in a near-predatory half-smile. "Thank you," Serena responded, polite but uneasy. She stood rigid, fully aware that something intangible yet potent was passing between them. It wasn't just a chance encounter, it felt orchestrated. That night, Serena barely slept. Her instincts screamed that Vanessa was more than just a business contact, but she lacked the proof or the courage to confront Ethan again. As the days wore on, Serena found herself engaged in an internal battle. Should she investigate further and risk their marriage spiraling into confrontation? Or should she remain silent, hoping that her love for Ethan would prove stronger than any temptation that this Vanessa could offer? Unbeknownst to Serena, the game of masks was in full play, and she was about to discover that behind Vanessa's perfect smile lurked a woman prepared to do unthinkable things to get what she wanted. Ethan and Serena were preparing for a weekend party at their estate in the Hamptons, an annual gathering of influential friends, politicians, celebrities, and a smattering of old acquaintances from Serena's life back in London. The Hamptons party was a highlight in the Blackwoods social calendar, famous for its breathtaking fireworks, display over the ocean, and the exclusive nature of the guest list. Everything from the color-coordinated decor to the gourmet menu, crafted by Michelin-starred chef Thomas Keller, was meticulously planned to reflect the Blackwoods' grandeur. On the surface, it was a moment of celebration, but beneath the surface, tensions simmered. Ethan insisted Vanessa attend the party to network with potential investors for her next film project. Serena found it impossible to refuse without causing a scene. So Vanessa arrived, wearing an elegant backless gown that turned heads and fired up the rumor mill. She floated around the estate, mingling effortlessly, dropping Ethan's name whenever beneficial for forging new connections. Every so often, Serena caught Vanessa stealing glances in Ethan's direction, glances tinged with a familiarity that went beyond professional courtesy. Around midnight, as the fireworks were scheduled to light up the sky, Serena wandered onto the terrace in search of Ethan. The crisp ocean breeze offered a momentary respite from the overwhelming swirl of social obligations and internal doubts. That's when she noticed a faint glow emanating from a corner of the garden, near a row of neatly trimmed hedges. Moving closer, she recognized Ethan's silhouette and another, Vanessa. They were in hushed conversation, standing dangerously close, silhouettes nearly merging under the moonlight. Serena's heart pounded. She debated whether to interrupt or retreat, but something made her linger in the shadows, straining to hear what they were saying. She couldn't catch every word, but the snippets were enough. Point as soon as Serena gives birth. Everything will be easier. I can't wait forever, Ethan. I've made sacrifices. The estate in Westchester can be ours. A thunderous crack from the fireworks display momentarily drowned out their voices. Illuminations burst overhead, painting the sky in brilliant blooms of color, while Serena felt her world collapsing. Vanessa was talking like a woman who believed she had a rightful claim to Ethan's future. That revelation stabbed Serena's heart, confirming her worst fears. She fled back into the house, barely managing to maintain composure. A flurry of well-wishers engaged her in polite conversation, praising her for hosting such a marvelous event. She forced a smile, a perfect imitation of the hostess role she'd played countless times. All the while, panic swirled in her mind, trapped behind her chest like a caged animal desperate to escape. By the time Serena and Ethan returned to Manhattan the next day, she was sick with anxiety. She made up an excuse to avoid him, claiming she needed rest. In her private bedroom suite, she broke down, tears soaking into the plush pillows. Was she foolish for not confronting him head on that very night? Possibly. But fear gripped her. She worried about her unborn child, the stress, the scandal, the heartbreak that might erupt. She questioned whether confronting him might push him even further into Vanessa's arms, leaving her and the baby destitute and alone. In a moment of desperation, Serena called an old friend from high school, someone outside the high society bubble, Amanda Cho, a journalist for a prominent investigative news site. Serena confided her suspicions. Amanda, known for her tenacity in uncovering hidden truths, offered to look into Vanessa Montclair's background. "Just let me run a quiet search," Amanda proposed. "You deserve to know who you're dealing with." A week later, Amanda had startling news. Vanessa Montclair wasn't just an aspiring actress. She had a history of broken relationships, all with wealthy men significantly older than her. She had even been briefly engaged to a European tycoon, only to have the engagement mysteriously fall apart with hush-money rumors swirling in the aftermath. "Serena, this woman is a social climber," Amanda warned. "If she has her claws in Ethan, you need to be extremely cautious. She's not the type to walk away empty-handed." Armed with this knowledge, Serena felt conflicted. She had no illusions left about Vanessa or Ethan's fidelity, but she wasn't prepared to blow her world apart. She was due in just 4 weeks. The idea of a cataclysmic confrontation amid hospital bags and LeMay's breathing exercises felt impossible to handle. She was physically and emotionally vulnerable, with no guarantee that Ethan would choose her and the baby over Vanessa if forced to decide. Yet, fate wouldn't wait for Serena's readiness. Secrets, once awakened, had a way of hurtling toward dramatic conclusions. The next turning point came unexpectedly when Serena discovered an emerald pendant in Ethan's private drawer engraved with the initials VM. The final insult was that Ethan had hidden it in the same drawer where he kept the silver rattle and baby booties for their unborn child. If that didn't confirm the double life he was leading, nothing would. The shock triggered intense stress for Serena, culminating in early contractions that night. Panicked, she thought she was going into labor. She was rushed to Mount Sinai Hospital, where doctors managed to stabilize her. "You must keep stress levels down, Doctor," Eileen Roberts admonished. "You're close to full term, but not quite there yet. Any severe emotional or physical strain could endanger both you and the baby." Ethan arrived at the hospital, looking genuinely alarmed. However, as soon as the doctor announced Serena and the baby were stable, his concern seemed to dissipate. He slipped outside to take a call, presumably from Vanessa, though he claimed it was a business partner. In that moment, Serena felt more alone than ever. Even on a hospital bed, with monitors tracking her baby's heartbeat, she couldn't command Ethan's full attention. The heartbreak was crushing, but it also stoked a quiet, determined rage in Serena. She would protect her child, no matter the cost. She just had to figure out how to do it within the confines of her unraveling marriage and the venomous presence of Vanessa Montclair. Serena was discharged from the hospital with strict orders to rest. She retreated to the Blackwood penthouse, confining herself to her spacious bedroom. Sunlight filtered through the floor to ceiling windows, illuminating the cityscape. On any other day, that view of Manhattan would have filled her with awe. Now, it felt like a cage, a panoramic prison. Days passed in uneasy silence, punctuated by checkups from Dr. Roberts and the occasional visitor. Most of Serena's social circle believed she was simply on bed rest, nothing more dramatic than a typical precaution for a high-risk pregnancy. Only a handful sensed the deeper trouble brewing. Teresa Thompson sent her daily text messages, urging Serena to keep up her spirits. Amanda Cho continued to dig for more intel on Vanessa, hoping to arm Serena with enough information to make a decisive stand. Ethan, for his part, tiptoed around Serena's bedroom like an intruder. He offered half-baked apologies, referencing work stress and unsaid complications. Whenever he mentioned Vanessa's name, Vanessa, who's helping me finalize the philanthropic documentary, or Vanessa, who has so many big ideas for our charity work, Serena felt nausea coil in her stomach. She wanted to scream at him to stop lying, but her vow to maintain her composure for the baby's sake held her tongue. Unable to endure the tension any longer, Serena proposed they see a couples counselor. To her mild surprise, Ethan agreed, perhaps in an attempt to keep up appearances or alleviate his guilt. For several sessions, they sat in plush chairs, a licensed therapist named Dr. Lillian Sanders guiding them with measured questions. It was an excruciating exercise in half-truths and unspoken accusations. Ethan insisted he was fully committed to his family. Serena remained guarded, aware that confronting him too bluntly about Vanessa could escalate the situation to a point of no return. One afternoon, after a particularly tense session, Ethan walked out abruptly, muttering something about a missed phone call. Left alone with Dr. Sanders, Serena felt tears threaten. "I'm terrified," she admitted in a whisper. "I don't know if the man I married is gone, or if he's just buried beneath these distractions. And I'm due to give birth any day now, Doctor." Sanders offered a sympathetic smile. "I sense how precarious you feel. My recommendation is to establish boundaries. Decide what you need from Ethan to feel secure. If he can't meet those needs, you must protect yourself and your child." Later that evening, bolstered by Dr. Sanders' advice, Serena waited for Ethan in his study. She confronted him gently but firmly. "Ethan, either you cut off all non-work contact with Vanessa, or I'm leaving. I'm not going to risk my health or our baby's future. His reaction was unexpectedly cold. Serena, you're blowing this out of proportion. Vanessa is essential to some upcoming project. I can't just cut her off. You should trust me. The last words made her flinch. You should trust me. They stung more than any open confession of infidelity would have. Rage bubbled up inside her. I'm asking you to make a choice, your unborn child and me, or a scandalous mistress who threatens our family. Is it really that complicated? Ethan slammed his glass of bourbon down on the mahogany desk, the liquor sloshing over the edge. Don't you dare make ultimatums, he snarled. My life isn't as black and white as you imagine, Serena. Everything I do for this family, for our legacy. Legacy, she repeated, voice trembling with both fury and heartbreak. What kind of legacy involves humiliating your pregnant wife and risking everything for a woman like Vanessa Montclair? They stood there, the tension so thick it was suffocating. Then Ethan turned and walked out. The echo of the slammed door reverberated throughout the penthouse like a fatal gunshot. Serena knew that something irreparable had cracked wide open between them. There was no going back to the naive hope that this was just a passing indiscretion. Word spread quickly in certain circles that the Blackwood marriage was on shaky ground. Although the tabloids had yet to pick up the story, insiders whispered, passing morsels of gossip at high society luncheons and under hushed tones in luxury boutiques. As Serena's due date approached, she found herself in a lonely fortress of anxiety, her life overshadowed by Ethan's ongoing entanglement with Vanessa. More brazen than ever, Vanessa began making appearances at events that Serena had traditionally hosted or attended. She showed up at a charity art auction in Soho, wearing a glamorous gown and smiling at the paparazzi's cameras. She dropped insinuations that she was closely working with Ethan on a major philanthropic project. Even though Serena was absent, recovering at home, she was not spared the humiliating headlines that followed. Vanessa Montclair, Ethan Blackwood's new philanthropy partner, read one blurb on a gossip website. Among the upper echelons, speculation swirled. Was Serena truly ill, or was she too distressed to make appearances? Did Ethan plan to divorce her after the baby's birth? Was Vanessa just a passing fancy or the new queen of the Blackwood Empire? Though Serena tried to maintain her composure, every new whisper felt like a dagger. Her once peaceful life became a daily struggle to maintain her sanity and protect her unborn child. Adding fuel to the fire, Vanessa made a series of social media posts hinting at luxurious gifts from a mysterious benefactor. Photos of sparkling jewelry, private jet trips, and an extravagant spa retreat. Some of the items in her posts matched suspicious receipts Serena had seen on Ethan's credit card statements. It was a public taunt, a not-so-subtle declaration of war. Serena had never considered herself a combative person, but the maternal instinct to protect her child stirred a fierce determination. She decided to meet Vanessa face to face, if only to make it clear that she wouldn't stand idle while her family was torn apart. Through a mutual acquaintance, a well-connected socialite named Catherine Whitfield Serena arranged a private meeting at a discreet cafe near Central Park. Vanessa arrived 15 minutes late, an air of smug self-assurance radiating from her. She wore designer sunglasses, a fitted black dress, and had a single red rose pinned to her purse strap. Sliding into the chair across from Serena, she placed her phone on the table, screen facing up, as if waiting for an important call. Serena clasped her trembling hands in her lap, trying to maintain a calm facade. "Thank you for agreeing to meet me," she began softly. Vanessa smiled, slow and deliberate. "I was curious to see what you'd say. Didn't expect you to be so civil." Serena exhaled, measured and quiet, her voice resolute. "I'm not here for a shouting match." I'm here to tell you that I won't allow you to destroy my family without a fight." A flash of amusement crossed Vanessa's eyes. "Oh, sweetheart, I'm not destroying anything. I'm building a future with Ethan. He and I have an understanding, something you clearly don't." Serena's cheeks burned, but she refused to lose her composure. "Listen to me carefully. I'm due to give birth at any moment. If you have any shred of decency, you'll walk away. Whatever Ethan has promised you, I'm telling you our marriage is not your stepping stone." Vanessa leaned forward, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Poor, naive Serena. You think Ethan wants a quiet suburban life with a baby? He's told me things about you, about your lack of ambition, your boring charity events. He's ready for something more exciting." Every barb plunged like a knife into Serena's heart, yet she gathered her strength. "Ethan and I have a history you don't understand. If you push too far, there will be consequences. For you and for him." Vanessa laughed a harsh, hollow sound. She picked up her phone, waving it slightly. "I have more evidence of Ethan's affections than you could possibly imagine. Text messages, photos, enough to cause a scandal that would bury you both in the public eye. So tell me, Serena, are you really willing to go to war with me?" Serena froze, the scope of Vanessa's manipulative power hitting her like a tidal wave. She had thought confronting Vanessa might scare her off, but she'd underestimated the woman's audacity and cunning. The lines had been drawn, and Vanessa was not only unafraid, she was practically daring Serena to challenge her. Without another word, Serena stood, feeling her baby shift in her womb, an urgent reminder of what truly mattered. She left the cafe, Vanessa's mocking laughter following her out onto the bustling sidewalk. Heart pounding, Serena resolved that she needed a plan, something more substantial than emotional pleas or idle threats. The well-being of her unborn child depended on her ability to navigate this storm with cunning and strength, traits she would have to summon if she had any hope of ending Vanessa's power play and preserving what was left of her marriage. Despite the chaos swirling around her, Serena found solace in unexpected corners. A longtime family friend, Charles Whitmore, a business associate of her late father, offered quiet support. Charles had always admired Serena's father, who'd once been a respected philanthropist in London before his untimely passing. He checked in regularly, bringing homemade meals, ensuring Serena was never too isolated. Occasionally, he offered gentle advice. "A strong mind and a calm heart can weather any storm. Your father taught me that." At the same time, Amanda Cho came through with more disturbing information. Vanessa had ties to questionable individuals in the film industry, some rumored to be involved in illicit funding. The deeper Amanda dug, the more she believed that Vanessa was using Ethan not just for personal luxury, but also as a cover for bigger, murkier deals. "If this goes public," Amanda warned, "it won't just be a scandal, it could bring down Ethan's business empire, possibly invite federal investigations. Serena, if you can't persuade Ethan to cut ties, you need to prepare for the fallout." Feeling cornered, Serena weighed her options. Divorce before the baby's birth seemed unthinkable, especially with her limited time and the precarious state of her health. She also feared for Ethan. She believed he was in the midst of a midlife crisis, enthralled by Vanessa's allure but blind to the legal and reputational hazards looming. If Serena publicly exposed Vanessa, it might save Ethan but also devastate him. His pride, his carefully cultivated image, everything would crumble, and the baby would be thrust into a whirlwind of negative publicity from the moment of birth. In the midst of this turmoil, Serena's obstetrician, Dr. Roberts, voiced a gentle reminder: "We should schedule an induction if you haven't gone into labor by your due date next week. Stress can delay or complicate the process." The imminent reality of childbirth forced Serena to think beyond the scandal. She needed a stable environment for her baby, and that might require drastic actions. One evening, Charles Whitmore visited the penthouse with a proposition. He offered Serena and the baby a safe haven at his lake house in upstate New York. "Stay there as long as you need," he said. "Far from the paparazzi, far from the city. I'll handle any press or legal matters that arise." Serena felt a wave of relief, but also guilt. Could she uproot her life and disappear, leaving Ethan to flounder? Yet the baby's safety was paramount. If Ethan refused to sever ties with Vanessa, Serena might not have a choice. Gathering her courage, Serena approached Ethan once more. This time, her voice trembled less, and her resolve was sharper. "I'm leaving," she declared, "unless you end your involvement with Vanessa and vow to keep her away from our family." Exhaustion edged Ethan's features. He sank into an armchair, running a hand through his hair. "Serena, you don't understand what I'm dealing with here. It's not just about an affair. Vanessa is tied to crucial business projects. If I shut her out now, I stand to lose millions, face breach of contract lawsuits." Serena's eyes flashed. "You think I care about money at this point? We have enough to last generations. This is about our child's future. Your father always said family comes first. Do you remember that?" A flicker of conflict crossed Ethan's face. Mentioning his father was a strategic move on Serena's part. The elder Blackwood's moral code had shaped Ethan into a charitable billionaire, or so the public believed. That code now stood at odds with Ethan's present conduct. "Fine," Ethan murmured, after a long silence. "I'll see what I can do." But Serena knew "I'll see what I can do" wasn't a firm commitment. It was a stall tactic. Time was running out, and she had little faith left in Ethan's promises. That night, she quietly packed an overnight bag, storing it in the back of her closet, just in case she needed to leave in haste. The day of Serena's due date arrived with a swirl of anticipation. She felt sporadic contractions, mild but noticeable. Dr. Roberts advised her to stay prepared for immediate admission to the hospital if the contractions intensified. Despite the joy that often accompanies the arrival of a child, an eerie tension hung in the air. Everyone sensed it: staff, friends, even the doorman at the Blackwood Tower. That evening, Serena planned a small dinner with Ethan to discuss final birth arrangements. She wanted to see if there was any glimmer of genuine commitment in him. Perhaps the proximity of their child's birth might jolt him into clarity. She set the table with fine china, lit candles, and had a chef prepare a simple but comforting meal: rosemary chicken, mashed potatoes, and a light salad. She hoped that a homey dinner might remind Ethan of the roots of their relationship: simple companionship, shared dreams. However, Ethan never showed. Minutes turned into hours, the candles burning low. He didn't answer her calls or texts. At midnight, Serena gave up and retreated to her bedroom, heart heavy with disappointment. Then, just as she was about to change into her nightgown, she heard the elevator chime. She tiptoed to the living room to find Ethan stumbling in, reeking of alcohol, accompanied by none other than Vanessa Montclair. "What is she doing here?" Serena demanded, arms folded protectively over her belly. Vanessa smirked. "We had an important meeting, and Ethan graciously offered to show me the penthouse. Such a stunning view, don't you think?" Serena felt her blood run cold. Her arms tightened around her body, as though shielding the baby from Vanessa's malignant aura. "Get out," she said, her voice trembling with fury. "Get out of my home." Before Serena could blink, Vanessa shot forward, closing the distance between them. "You're done, Serena," she hissed. "Ethan's practically mine, and soon enough, I'll make this place my home, maybe not tomorrow, but soon. Ethan, clearly intoxicated, fumbled for words. Wait, no, that's not Vanessa. Calm down. But it was too late. The tension had reached a boiling point, and in that explosive moment, lines were crossed that could never be uncrossed. Serena lunged forward, furious tears streaming down her face, determined to physically remove Vanessa if necessary. Vanessa, agile and fueled by her own brand of fury, grabbed Serena by the shoulders. Serena felt the sharp edge of a stiletto heel dig into her foot, losing her balance momentarily. In a split second, her world tilted. The entire room blurred as Vanessa gave a forceful shove. Serena's body lurched backward. She tried to catch herself, but her momentum carried her toward the grand marble staircase that curved down to the lower level of the penthouse. Time seemed to slow to a crawl. Her arms flailed, trying to find something to grip. For a heart-stopping moment, she locked eyes with Ethan, a silent plea for him to intervene. But he stood frozen, expression twisted in drunken confusion. Then Serena fell. The impact of her body against the marble steps created a sickening thud that reverberated through the opulent penthouse. A searing pain erupted in her abdomen as she tumbled down the staircase, each step amplifying her agony. Her mind screamed in terror for the baby inside her, but the sound died in her throat. When she finally came to a stop at the bottom of the stairs, her vision blurred. She heard Vanessa's panicked gasp and Ethan's curse-laden shout. Serena's consciousness flickered, pain radiating from her lower abdomen in waves that threatened to shut down her body entirely. The last thing she remembered was the feeling of warm, liquid pooling between her legs and the muffled wail of sirens as the world descended into darkness. 3 days later, Serena awoke in a private hospital room at Mount Sinai. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, and the steady beep of medical monitors pulsed in the background. She was disoriented, her mind swirling with fragments of the horrific accident. Pain medication dulled the physical agony, but no drug could soften the emotional torment of not knowing the fate of her unborn child. In a fog of half-awareness, she glanced down at her stomach. Her belly felt flatter, emptier. She tried to speak, but only managed a strangled noise. A nurse rushed in, noticing she was awake. "Miss S. Blackwood, please don't try to move. You're still recovering from surgery." "Surgery?" Serena croaked, tears welling in her eyes. "My baby! Where is my baby?" The nurse's expression turned grave. She hesitated before saying, "I'm so sorry. Your injuries were severe. The baby didn't survive." Serena's world caved in, an indescribable grief swallowing her whole. Her arms instinctively wrapped around her abdomen, searching for a life that was no longer there. A guttural wail tore from her throat, raw and ragged with pain. The nurse tried to comfort her, but no warmth could penetrate the abyss that opened within Serena's soul. Hours blurred. Doctors came and went, explaining the extent of her injuries: a fractured pelvis, internal bleeding, and, most devastatingly, the loss of her child. Apparently, an emergency C-section had been performed in a desperate attempt to save the baby, but the trauma was too severe. In a haze, Serena asked if Ethan had been by her bedside. The nurse avoided her gaze. It was Dr. Roberts who finally answered. He visited once, briefly, but he hasn't returned since. The knowledge that Ethan hadn't been there, had not even stayed to hold her hand, deepened her anguish. Instead, when she was stable enough for visitors, she saw two comforting faces, Teresa Thompson and Charles Whitmore. Their eyes glistened with tears as they clasped Serena's hands. "I'm so sorry," Teresa whispered. "No one should have to endure such a tragedy," Charles added, his voice thick with emotion. "I know you're in pain, but we need to document what happened. The doctors, the hospital, they need to know how you fell. If there's any possibility of pressing charges. Serena's heart twisted in confusion and sorrow. Legally, it was an accident, or so Vanessa would no doubt claim. But Serena remembered the push, Vanessa's hands on her shoulders, the violent thrust. How could she prove it? Ethan's testimony would be crucial, but he was nowhere to be found. Even if she pressed charges, the scandal would be immeasurable, and her emotional resources were already depleted. Still, a flicker of determination ignited in her. She had lost her child, and that injustice demanded some form of resolution. Closing her eyes, she saw that final moment on the stairs, felt Vanessa's purposeful shove. Through tears, she rasped, "I want to pursue legal action against Vanessa. She murdered my baby." Teresa and Charles exchanged worried glances. "We'll help you," Charles said softly, leaning in. "But first, focus on your recovery. The law can wait a few days. We'll ensure you have the best legal counsel." In the hallway, the hospital staff whispered about the tragedy, how the glamorous, pregnant wife of a billionaire had arrived in a bloodied gown, unconscious, carried in by paramedics, while the alleged father of the child was nowhere in sight. The medical team did its best to maintain professionalism, but rumors spread like wildfire in hushed corners that Ethan was compromised, that a mistress was involved, that a scandal was brewing that could tarnish the Blackwood name forever. Serena, meanwhile, drifted in and out of restless sleep. She dreamed of cradling a baby, only to have it vanish from her arms. Each time she jolted awake in tears, confronted by the stark reality of her empty hospital room. Yet amid the grief, something else brewed, a steely resolve to protect herself from further harm, to seek justice for her unborn child, to stand up against the monstrous betrayal that had stolen the one thing she held most dear. On the 5th day of her hospital stay, Serena finally received a visit from Ethan. She was propped up against pillows, wearing a hospital gown that hung loosely on her thinning frame. When Ethan entered, she saw that his eyes were bloodshot, his face ashen. Despite her anger, she felt a pang of pity. He looked utterly broken, but sympathy quickly gave way to bitterness. He approached her bedside, attempting to take her hand, but she pulled away. "Where have you been?" she asked, her voice trembling with a mix of grief and fury. "I lost our baby, and you couldn't bother to be here?" Ethan's eyes brimmed with tears. "Serena, I'm sorry. I didn't know how to face you. I've been dealing with so much guilt." Serena closed her eyes, her throat tight. "Yes, guilt. Guilt because you were with Vanessa that night. Guilt because you let her into our home when I was at my most vulnerable. Guilt because you stood there and watched her push me." His head dropped, his voice barely audible. "I've spoken to Vanessa. She denies pushing you. She said it was an accident, that she lost her balance, and you both fell." "Stop!" Serena's voice cracked like a whip through the sterile silence of the room. "I know what happened. I felt her hands on me. You were there, Ethan. Don't lie to yourself. I was drunk," he murmured. "I can't remember clearly. Everything happened so fast." "Then let me remind you," Serena said, her voice laced with icy rage. "She killed our child, and you let her." The harshness of her words made Ethan recoil. He sank into a chair, burying his face in his hands. For a moment, neither spoke, the air thick with heartbreak and resentment. Finally, he looked up, eyes pleading. "I'm ending it with Vanessa. She's gone. I promise. I just need you to give me another chance." It was the apology Serena had once desperately hoped for, but now it came too late, overshadowed by unimaginable loss. She felt a hollow ache in her chest, an emptiness that mirrored her womb. "You choose now?" she choked out. After everything, do you think you can fix this with a simple promise? He reached for her, but she recoiled. Our baby is gone, Ethan. Gone, and Vanessa is responsible. Do you understand? I can't just forgive that. Ethan clenched his hands into fists. What do you want me to do? I'll do anything. Serena stared at him through tear-rimmed eyes. I want you to tell the truth about what happened that night. I want you to stand by me if we press charges. His silence spoke volumes. He was terrified of scandal, of lawsuits, of tarnished legacy. His father's reputation, his philanthropic empire, everything was at risk. And in that moment, Serena saw with brutal clarity the depth of his cowardice. She realized he valued his public image more than he valued justice for his unborn child. That's what I thought, Serena whispered. Leave. Ethan's gaze was heavy with regret, but he left the room without another word. The door closed behind him, sealing Serena in her realm of grief. A heavy exhaustion overcame her, and she leaned back, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. She couldn't remember feeling so utterly alone. Despite Ethan's betrayal, Serena was far from alone in her pursuit of justice. Word of the tragic fall had finally reached the tabloids, albeit with minimal detail. Rumors of an accident swirled, but Serena's allies knew the truth. Teresa Thompson, Charles Whitmore, and Amanda Cho formed an ad hoc team to protect Serena's interests and reputation. They worked tirelessly to build a case against Vanessa, combing through security footage, interviewing house staff, and tracing Ethan's credit card transactions on the night of the tragedy. A major break came when one of the maids who had been on duty that evening summoned the courage to speak up. Her name was Lucia Cruz, and she recounted hearing raised voices and witnessing Vanessa storming into the penthouse behind a clearly intoxicated Ethan. According to Lucia, she saw Serena at the top of the stairs and heard a loud scuffle. By the time Lucia raced to the bottom of the staircase, Serena lay there, unconscious, with blood pooling around her. Lucia vividly recalled Vanessa's hysterical screams and Ethan's frantic attempts to call 911. Most importantly, Lucia insisted that Vanessa had cried out, "I didn't mean to push her," in those first panicked moments. That testimony, while not definitive proof of intent, significantly bolstered Serena's case. Charles arranged for Lucia to give a statement to the police and hired a high-profile attorney named Harriet Klein. Harriet was known for her unwavering commitment to justice, particularly in cases involving the wealthy and powerful. She immediately scheduled a meeting with the district attorney to discuss potential charges. Meanwhile, Vanessa went underground. Her social media accounts went dormant, and she was absent from high society events. Rumor had it she'd fled to Los Angeles, hoping to salvage her acting career and escape legal consequences. Ethan, under severe pressure from his board of directors and philanthropic advisors, publicly announced a separation from Vanessa, insisting that their involvement was strictly business. But the damage was done, and the black cloud of suspicion lingered over him. In the hospital, Serena fought a separate battle: physical recovery. The injury to her pelvis required weeks of physical therapy. Each session was a painful reminder of what she had lost, and how violently her life had been turned upside down. Yet it also steeled her resolve. Every time she faltered, she remembered the final moments before her fall, the terror, the heartbreak, and she found renewed determination to see justice served. Harriet Klein visited Serena in her hospital room, offering legal updates and reassurance. "We have a strong circumstantial case, and with Lucia's statement, we can prove Vanessa's actions were more than just an accident," Harriet explained. "But be prepared for a tough battle. Vanessa's defense will argue that you lost your balance, that it was an unfortunate mishap." Serena nodded, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'll handle it. I won't let my baby's death go unavenged." As days passed, Serena gained some measure of strength. She could walk short distances with a walker, and the color gradually returned to her cheeks. Emotional healing was another matter entirely. She woke each morning to a hollow ache in her soul, but the unwavering support of Teresa, Charles, and Amanda helped keep her afloat. They shielded her from prying reporters and curated public statements that framed her as a victim of tragic circumstances rather than a socialite embroiled in scandal. For once, the media sentiment was in her favor. Behind the scenes, Harriet worked tirelessly. She filed a wrongful death suit against Vanessa and laid the groundwork for criminal charges of manslaughter, based on the claim that Vanessa had knowingly and recklessly endangered Serena, resulting in the unborn baby's death. The legal complexities were daunting, but Harriet was convinced that, if the case went to trial, a jury would empathize with Serena's plight. With the pieces of her life in shards, Serena pinned her hopes on the one course left to her, seeking justice for her lost child. She knew it wouldn't bring back the life that had been stolen, but it might bring her a measure of peace. In a situation rife with betrayal and cowardice, it was the one virtuous fight left to wage. A month later, Serena was released from the hospital. The paparazzi gathered outside Mount Sinai, snapping photos of her as she slowly made her way into a waiting SUV, helped by Teresa. Headlines read, "Serena Blackwood emerges, legal battle looms over tragic loss." Despite her feeble condition, Serena's posture was resolute, her eyes steeled for the fight ahead. That week, Harriet secured a preliminary hearing for the manslaughter charge against Vanessa. The prosecuting attorney needed Serena's first-hand testimony to establish probable cause, so Serena found herself in a small, packed courtroom. She sat in a wheelchair, still recovering, flanked by Harriet on one side and Charles on the other. The tension was palpable. Rows of reporters lined the back of the room, scribbling notes or filming discreetly for their respective outlets. Vanessa arrived with her legal counsel, wearing a conservative black pantsuit, her hair pulled back in a tight bun that contrasted sharply with her usual glamorous style. She avoided making eye contact with Serena. Ethan, looking drawn and pale, sat behind Vanessa, a gesture that caused a flutter of whispers in the courtroom. The lines of allegiance were blurred. He appeared to be there more as a concerned observer than an ally to either party. When the judge called Serena to the stand, she wheeled forward, trembling slightly. She recounted the horrifying moment at the top of the staircase, Vanessa's menacing demeanor, Ethan's drunken state, the sharp push that sent her tumbling downward. Her voice cracked when she spoke of her child, her anguish evident to everyone present. She told the court that even in her blurred state of consciousness, she heard Vanessa proclaim, "I didn't mean to push her." Vanessa's lawyer tried to paint Serena as emotionally unstable, pointing to her advanced pregnancy, possible dizziness, or a misstep. But Harriet swiftly countered with Lucia's testimony and the documented medical evidence, emphasizing the force needed to cause Serena's catastrophic injuries. The tension reached a fever pitch when Harriet called Ethan to testify. He shuffled to the witness stand, avoiding Serena's gaze. Under oath, he admitted that he'd been drinking heavily, that he recalled a heated argument between Serena and Vanessa. Yet, when pressed on whether he saw Vanessa push Serena, he claimed he couldn't remember. Serena's heart sank. Ethan's fear of implicating himself or damaging his reputation was greater than his loyalty to her. Still, Harriet managed to extract one crucial admission. Ethan confirmed that Vanessa had shouted something along the lines of, "I didn't mean to push her," in the immediate aftermath. It was enough to keep the manslaughter charge viable. Outside the courthouse, reporters bombarded Serena with questions. "Do you believe Vanessa intended to harm you, Miss S. Blackwood?" Serena's eyes filled with tears. "I believe she chose a violent act in a moment of anger," she answered, voice firm. A swirl of camera flashes erupted, capturing the heartbreak etched across her face. Teresa and Charles whisked her away, shielding her from the media storm. As they drove off, Serena glanced out the window to see Ethan and Vanessa standing on the courthouse steps, locked in a tense conversation. She saw Ethan's hand wave dismissively, Vanessa's face contorted with rage. Then, in a surprising twist, Ethan turned and walked away, leaving Vanessa behind. The cameras pivoted, capturing the moment of what appeared to be a rift between them. Teresa looked back at Serena. "Seems like Ethan's finally choosing sides," she offered softly. Serena pressed her forehead against the cool window glass, uncertain whether it was too little, too late. The storm was far from over. The legal wheels turned slowly, but in the ensuing months, the prosecution built a compelling case. Vanessa was eventually indicted for manslaughter. She was released on bail, but her career was in tatters. No producer or investor wanted to be associated with someone facing such charges. Gossip rags that once praised her as a rising star now labeled her a gold-digging pariah. For Serena, the ordeal took a heavy emotional toll. She attended therapy sessions multiple times a week to cope with the staggering loss of her child and the betrayal that led to it. She also began divorce proceedings against Ethan, though he made overtures of reconciliation, claiming he was no longer in contact with Vanessa. The emotional damage was irreparable. The final straw was his refusal to fully support the criminal case against Vanessa by testifying that he'd witnessed the push. For Serena, that spoke volumes about his moral cowardice and skewed priorities. The tabloids, ever hungry for fresh scandal, pivoted their angle, now depicting Ethan as a spineless billionaire who'd sacrificed his wife's welfare for an illicit affair. Donations to his charitable foundations dwindled. Board members resigned in protest. Several of his business deals fell through, citing ethics clauses. In a desperate bid to salvage what was left of his reputation, Ethan gave a tearful interview on a daytime talk show, acknowledging his mistakes and expressing deep remorse for Serena's ordeal. Watching that interview from Charles Whitmore's living room, where she was temporarily staying, Serena felt no satisfaction. She saw a man drowning in self-inflicted tragedy, but her sympathy was overshadowed by the memory of her child's final moments. In truth, there could be no real justice for a lost life, only legal consequences that felt hollow compared to the magnitude of her grief. When the criminal trial finally arrived, Serena found herself back in court. She sat with Harriet, Teresa, and Charles, bracing for another wave of painful testimony. The prosecution made a clear, concise argument. Vanessa Montclair had a motive removing Serena from Ethan's life. Witness testimonies and forensic reports indicated a push. Vanessa's defense contested the intent, claiming it was an accident in the midst of a drunken altercation. As the trial stretched on, it took an emotional toll on Serena, who had to relive the trauma day after day. In a surprising turn, Ethan returned to the witness stand and offered a slightly amended testimony. This time, he said he believed Vanessa had intentionally laid hands on Serena. Though he couldn't confirm she meant to cause such grievous harm, his words still carried weight. His change of heart, while late, made the prosecution's case stronger. Perhaps guilt or public pressure had finally broken through his defenses. After days of deliberation, the jury found Vanessa guilty of involuntary manslaughter. The court sentenced her to a prison term, though not nearly as long as Serena might have hoped. She watched the verdict read with tears running down her cheeks. Vanessa's expression was one of shock and outrage, but she was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs, her once glamorous life shattered. As the legal team congratulated each other on a hard-fought victory, Serena felt only sadness. Nothing could bring her baby back. She accepted the well-wishes with a distant nod, longing for a different outcome, one where her child was born safely, where Ethan had remained faithful, where none of this sorrow had invaded her life. The cameras flashed around her as she left the courthouse, Harriet guiding her toward a waiting car. Reporters shouted, "Serena, how do you feel about the verdict?" She paused just long enough to answer, "There's no winning in a tragedy like this. I just hope we can all find some peace." In the months that followed the trial, Serena finalized her divorce from Ethan, determined to move forward on her own terms. She channeled her grief into starting a foundation that provided emotional and financial support for women experiencing high-risk pregnancies. Though her pain remained, helping others heal gave her purpose. Ethan retreated from public life, stepping down from his company and attempting to rebuild his tarnished reputation away from New York's glaring spotlight. Vanessa, serving her time, faded from the headlines, her once grand ambitions reduced to tabloid cautionary tales. Serena's life wasn't perfect, nor would her heart ever fully mend from losing her child. But she found a quiet strength in knowing she had fought for justice. Now she stands ready to rebuild, leaving the mansion's glimmering halls and tragic memories behind. Please like, share, and subscribe to hear more stories of resilience, heartbreak, and the power of survival. Your support matters.